Hi, my name is Joanna and this is Input Studio. So when you're mixing a song, oftentimes you want to be mixing the vocal first as it is one of the most important parts of your song. But the problem is you want to make sure the vocal is going to sit properly in the mix, have presence, cut through, but not overpower any of the instruments. You want to make sure you can hear everything in the mix, but still make the vocal shine. So today I'm going to be showing you a recent mix that I have done for a contest, and I'm going to be showing you exactly the chain of plugins that I have used. And the best part of it is that the plugins are free and you can check for yourselves. I'll leave the links in the descriptions below. So I'm going to be showing you a session on Studio One and walk you through exactly the process that I have done. Make sure you subscribe at the end of the video if you enjoyed and if you want to see more videos to come. Thank you. Okay, so I have got a Studio One session here now, and these are the tracks for the Hofa Christmas mixing contest that just happened until the end of January. The results haven't been published yet, but all the submissions have officially finished now at the time of the recording, so hopefully there shouldn't be any issues with using these tracks. You can check their school out. They've got courses, they've got their own set of plugins as well. I'll leave the link in the description below if you want to check them out. I'm just going to play a little bit of the track and how I mixed it. This is the chorus, and we're going to be looking at David's lead vocal, just his own, because he's singing throughout the entire song, whereas the other vocalist is only singing in the last chorus onwards. So we're just going to focus on his vocal for this video. I'm just going to play the chorus with the processing that I have done, with everything engaged, and we'll just work from there.
Because down on earth it's Christmas, but high above am I know you are waiting.
Okay, lovely. I'm going to mute everything, play it without anything, and just gonna bring the vocal up a little bit to compensate. So let's hear it.
Because down on earth it's Christmas, but high above am I know you are waiting.
Great. So let's just bring that back down. I wanted to show you the chain of plugins I have used for David's vocal, and I think this is a very good example because I want to show you all free stuff that you can use. All these plugins here, when I open my mixing, or my current mixing template, all these plugins are here, but that doesn't mean that I'll use all of them. There's just a few things that I might do on every single mix, but I'll just walk through them in what I have chosen to use on this one. So the first important thing to determine is where you want to take the vocal in the mix. And the vocal is one of the things that I go to first, because usually you go through the most important parts of the mix to the least important. So usually in every pop, R&B, rock vocal, usually the vocal is one of the main parts of the song. So you should start by it and making sure that it is on the place you want it to be, to then just be adding the rest of the instruments in. So with every vocal, usually I start with a bit of EQ, cutting EQ most of the time only, unless I want to give it a bit of sheen at the end, or a bit of brightness, a bit of presence. I usually, the first thing with the EQ is that I don't usually boost anything other than what is really necessary, but mostly it's just cutting. In some vocals I might cut off like the lows. I didn't do that on this one. I didn't feel like it was needed. It wasn't accumulating much there, or it sounded good as it was. So I'm just gonna play without the EQ first, and then with EQ. Let's bring that up again. Not this one. Just bring it up to compensate. So without.
Because down under it's Christmas, but high above am I know.
Cool. So with the let's just bring this back down. With the EQ engaged, you can see that there's instantly a bit of clarity and it kind of sounds a bit more clean. I don't know. Oh, why is this engaging? So that's probably what I thought at the time. But you could actually see that these are dynamic bands, and the stock Studio One EQ allows you to do that. I'm not sure if other DAWs will, but if not, you can use this TDR Nova plugin, which I'll also leave the link in the description. And these have got dynamic bands. You can adjust the threshold and all of that. So it's a very cool plugin that if you don't have one in your DAW, you can use this one instead. But back to the Studio One EQ. I tend to go more towards dynamic cutting. And that is because if I'm processing the vocal all together, verses, choruses, bridges, all of that, obviously the tonalities change and the performance of the singer changes throughout the entire song. So if I'm wanting to be cutting something that's annoying me in the chorus, maybe that's not annoying me in the verses. And if I was just to cut this completely, it could sound good in the chorus, but then in the verses it would sound probably without any presence. It would sound like it was back in the mix. It wouldn't sound properly. So I think that using dynamic bands it's very, very useful, because you can set a threshold over here, which just means that this is only going to dip after the vocal has passed that threshold in this specific area. So that's exactly what I was doing. I wanted it down in the chorus, but then I didn't want it as much down in the verses. So that's why I went for the dynamic bands here, and that's what I usually tend to do anyway. After cutting EQ, I usually do a bit of compression. This is another free plugin by Analog Obsession. It's an LA2A emulation. It's very, very cool. Not only it will compress, you also have this high pass filter option here, which is if you don't want to be allowing bass, kick, and all that, if you're using this in drums, for example, if you don't want those frequencies to trigger the compression, which usually they trigger the compression a lot, you can just high pass like to 100 hertz, and everything below 100 hertz will not trigger the compression. So this is the compressor. So this is very, very useful. I'm just going to show you what this is doing in the vocal in particular. The reasoning behind this is just taming the peaks a little bit, giving it a bit of character, which Analog Obsession plugins are very good for, a bit of harmonics, a bit of character, but not doing anything drastic, because if you do anything drastic at this stage, you cannot undo it in the future stages. So let's play it without first.
Because down under it's Christmas, but high above am I know you.
It's great. It's not doing much, as you can see, but it instantly brings it forward a little bit in the mix, and bit by bit we'll get there. Basically, that's why I'm not doing, the needle's barely moving, but that's why I'm not doing much with this. So the next thing would be to EQ some more if I still wasn't happy with how the vocal was sounding, but I was, so I didn't do anything else. I'm just going to activate these sends, and we'll go through the sends in a bit. And then usually I bring all the lead vocals together and I process them on a lead vocal buzz. And on a lead vocal buzz, the aim is to just make them sound a bit rounder, a bit more present, a bit warmer, and forward in the mix, let's put it that way. And to kind of like, if I'm processing them together, like vocal, like choruses, bridges, verses, if I'm processing them all together, I can kind of glue them together and give them something that's common to all of them throughout the entire song. So what I have done in particular here was that I have applied this L-Ray compressor. This is obviously a paid plugin. This is the trial version I'm using. You can use it too. It's a very, very good plugin. Not only it compresses, but it also gives it a bit of character. That's just amazing. So I think I'm going to probably buy this one at the end of the trial, because it sounds very, very good. Very, very good. It just gives it something. I don't know what, but you'll listen for yourselves. So let's just put it in.
Because down under it's Christmas, but high above am I know you are waiting.
You can see that when I engage it and when I disengage it, it changes. Obviously is level matched, so sometimes we're deceived by the jump in bit of volume, but it's not the case here. But you feel like it's coming forward in the mix. It's sitting better in the song, and that's what this does. It just gives it harmonics and sheen and all sorts of things. And you don't have to be like doing a lot. I was just like barely touching the needle as well, but it's another one of those tiny steps that contributes towards a better mix. An alternative to this, a free alternative if you don't want to download the trial of the L-Ray, is this OSS by Analog Obsession. Once again, I'm just gonna engage this one, or let's start without, and I took the L-Ray out. Let's listen to what it sounds like.
Because down under it's Christmas, but high above am I know you are waiting.
It's amazing. Actually, I think the volume dipped on this one, so I should have compensated this a little bit. But you can instantly tell that the vocal is more controlled and more up to the front, and then you disengage it and it's a massive change. So it's a very, very good alternative, kind of like similar. It's a tube compressor like the L-Ray. So then after this one, I had other options to do some more processing, which I didn't feel like it needed. Another EQ, the TTR Nova that I just showed you guys, if I wanted like a little boost in some area, a bit of presence, anything at all. And then I've got this Vestos that I also didn't use. But this is also a very cool plugin for you guys to check out. It's free and it's similar to Soothe 2. And there's videos on the internet about like comparing Soothe 2 and comparing Vestos, and it's a very cool one. And then I'm just going to engage the sends. After this processing, which as you can see is not much, and it doesn't take much most of the times to sit the vocal in the mix. But after this processing, I wanted a bit more presence still. I cut with the EQ the things I didn't like, but I wanted to add a bit of harmonics to make the vocal a bit more present, a bit warmer as well. So the things that I usually recur to when I want these things out of the vocal are parallel compression and saturation. And I don't insert it on the main inserts on the vocal itself, because I want to be able to control it with another fader. Like if I want a lot of saturation in the chorus, I may put it up here, which is probably not a good idea. And then if I want a bit less in the verses, I'll just lower it down a little bit. So this gives me the power to control this as a parallel. Same for the parallel compressor, and well, obviously the same for sends, like reverbs and delays and all of that stuff, which we'll go through in a minute. So talking about the saturation, what I have used was this Soundtoys little radiator. I got this for free on a giveaway they did, but I don't have an alternative, a free one at the moment, but I can tell you one that you can install, which is called G-Set, and I'll also leave the link in the description below. It's a very, very good one. I just don't have it here because I've literally just changed computers, so I'm still in the process of installing most of the things, but it's an amazing plugin, GSAT. So with Real Little Radiator, I just gave it a bit of heat. I left it on 100% wet because I'm going to control the send with the fader. Usually I just leave it on 100% wet. So I'm going to play the vocal alone so you can definitely tell the difference when I engage the saturation this time.
Because down on earth it's Christmas, but high above am I.
It's amazing, just kind of like gives it presence straight away. It's a very cool trick when you want to add something. Of course, this is not a rule for everything. You can be boosting some frequencies with an EQ, but I try to stay away from that way of boosting as much as I possibly can. And usually it's sometimes adding saturation and then kind of saying where you want the saturation. Like I didn't want saturation in the lower, in the low end. I just wanted saturation from kind of this area onwards. So I just cut everything the saturation plugin was giving me below that level, and then I just stuck with the rest. And like just with the plugin engaged, you can see right here the harmonics it's generating, which is pretty cool. So you can definitely tell it's doing something. And then the other thing that usually I run in parallel is a compressor. And if you use a 1176 emulation like this one from Studio One, you can engage all of the ratios. Like when you push all the buttons, I think they call this British compression, if I'm not mistaken. Correct me if I'm wrong. But what this means is that basically it's all in. Whatever goes through the compressor is just literally put flat. So you're going to have a super tight, super controlled vocal if you run it through this. That's why you don't want to run your vocal through this directly. You just want it to blend as a send, as parallel, basically. So I'm going to show you the vocal without this engaged and with, and you're going to see the needle is like all the way down here, basically. But the vocal hopefully should sound more in your face, more in the front. Let's have a listen.
Because down on earth it's Christmas, but high above am I. I know you are.
It's amazing. It's just one of those things. Very cool tricks. So make sure you add this to your next mixes. And then the final thing for the vocal is I have added a bit of reverb. On this particular track, I didn't feel like the song needed a lot of reverb, like something big. I just wanted it like a room reverb, kind of to sit in a mix with the rest of the instruments, because like the drums had already a room reverb on it. I added a bit of reverb to the guitars as well, so I wanted them all to kind of blend together and not feel like the vocal is too dry and the rest of the instruments have a bit of room on them. So I gave a bit of room to the vocal as well. This is what you would do for a track like this, which is more acoustic, I think, in my opinion. But if it's another kind of track, you may want to use a reverb as an effect that is really audible in the song. So you may use a different pre-delay or a different I'm missing the word, a different size of the reverb. But in this one I used a pretty small size, as you can see, and then I just used a compressor to sidechain it with the vocal. So when the vocal is too present in the mix, the reverb is going to dip a little bit, and then when the vocal comes out, the reverb kind of goes back in the mix. So we're going to play it without and then with, and then solo the reverb.
Because down on earth it's Christmas, but high above am I. I know you
it, guys. So this is how I processed this vocal. This is kind of the reasoning behind everything that I have done on this one. And hopefully I have given you some cool tips for you to use in your own vocals to help them sit in the mix, sound clear, sound articulate, and come forward and still be warm and with presence. I'm going to leave the link in the description for all the plugins that I have talked to you about. And if you're interested in seeing some more videos like this in the future, make sure you subscribe, give me the thumbs up, share this with your fellow producers and artists, and I will see you on the next one. Thank you so much for watching.